My name is Leonard Garfield. I'm the director of MOHAI, and this is one of my favorite programs of the year. It's our annual partnership with the Black Heritage Society of Washington State to honor Black History Month. I have to go off script right from the very beginning to say that there is no other heritage organization in our community that does such great work with so few resources except their own strength, their own enthusiasm, their own commitment to history, and they are saving and preserving and sharing the history of our community, our Black community here in Seattle and across the state. And let's just give it up for the BHS because they are absolutely amazing. This is also the first program at MOHAI that we will be celebrating, commemorating, and reflecting this year on 250 years of American history. 1776, the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And what a great way to start. The verdict is the questions, the challenges, the aspirations, and the opportunities. We're going to hear so much about how that history played out on the ground here in Seattle from a very distinguished panel. Before we do that, I do want to start, as we do every program at MOHAI, to remind us that we are here on the lands and home of the Coast Salish people. We honor their endurance, we honor their presence, and we share their history with them here at the museum. And I also want to give a few details about the facility. We've got restrooms down the hall that way. We've got lots of food, and we're very casual about food, so you can take it right into your seat and things to drink. And feel free to get around, and if you need to, because we're going to have a great conversation, but you don't have to feel like you're locked into your seat. Well, I am very, very honored to introduce the president of the BHS, Stephanie Johnson-Toliver, who is an incredible individual. If you've ever had a chance to work with Stephanie, listen to Stephanie, follow Stephanie, you absolutely have to do it, because I was saying to Ellen just moments ago, we're part of the Stephanie Johnson-Toliver fan club, and you will be too before the evening's out. So with that, Stephanie, come on up on stage.
Yeah, everybody watched that. Hello. Welcome. Gosh, what a privilege it always is to be at MOHAI and in space, the space with our 40-plus year partner, the Museum of History and Industry, welcoming BHS and embracing us for more than 40 years, where we share the repository in Georgetown. We'll tell you a little bit more about that as we get through the program. So on behalf of the board of the Black Heritage Society, I welcome you here tonight. And before we really get into the real meat of this program, well, I shouldn't put it that way, because what Jaye Ware is going to share with you tonight is something that's always significant. We're going to start off the program with the poetry of Jaye Ware, who is a member of the African American Writers Alliance. And when Jaye approached me and said, you know what, I have something special to say. She retired too, maybe she'll share that, she retired from the courts last year, so all of the synchronicity coming together for this evening. And so with all that said, Jaye, please welcome.
Well, I can tell you right now that I am super honored to be here. She's right. I retired from King County Superior Court November of 2025, and it was a scary thing. You know, when you work for the court system for such a very, 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 very long time, it was a scary thing. But before I get into my poem, she told me you had 3 minutes. So I wrote it, 3 minutes. And then I get this text like yesterday, well, actually, you have a little extra time. I'm like, what? So with that little extra time, I want to tell you a couple of things. I'm going to start with when I started with the court. Judge Charles V. Johnson was the presiding judge. Yes, he was. It was so wonderful. I kid you not. It was wonderful. He has such an air of dignity about him. Many of you met Judge Charles V. Johnson, and you know that to be true. And he was an incredible, down-to-earth human being, and then a brilliant judge who collected turtles. So he had hundreds of turtles in his chambers from around the world. I mean, it would be turtles in shoes, turtles in hats, turtles that were emerging out of eggshells. I mean, it was the most incredible collection of turtles. Did you still keep those turtles? Okay. Also, it was back when you had to drive for mental health court. You had to drive to Overlake Hospital. So in the car was Judge Charles V. Johnson, myself, the clerk, and the court reporter. We're driving across the bridge. The windows are down, well, partially, but down enough where a bee could get in. And it got in. Now, you're sitting with a judge, and you're trying to be a little bit dignified yourself. Not when there's a bee in the car. I'm not dignified. We got to pull over. We on the bridge. Oh, no, I'm freaking out. I do not want to get stung. I'm terrified. I do not like insects. I really don't. For whatever reason, I don't know where it came from. I don't like insects. I really don't like insects that could sting me or bite me. So I am freaking out. Pull over, pull over, pull over. Oh my God, there's a bee in the car. As soon as, of course, Judge Johnson is driving. Judge Johnson is driving. As soon as we get across that bridge, he pulls over. He pulls over. Okay, so we get to be out. Here's the last thing I'm going to say, and then I'm going to get into my poem. This is the first time I saw him on the bench. I was not his judicial officer. I was not his bailiff, judicial assistant. I was not his bailiff, but we covered for one another. So I'm in his courtroom, and there is an African-American defendant who was involved as the driver of the getaway car of a bank robbery. Now, he was a driver. He didn't do much. He was just driving. So he sees Judge Johnson. And when a black person sees another black person in position of authority, and you've got a problem on your hands, you think, oh, they're going to get it. They're going to understand. They're going to give me a break. They realize my history. They've had history. We see each other. We see each other. Now, I'm feeling sorry for the defendant myself. Okay. So this is what Judge Johnson says. And I have never, this was a long time ago. I've never forgotten what he said after he talked to this defendant for a second. He said, if you are guilty of a dime, you're guilty of $1. I'll never forget that. I was feeling sorry for him. I'm like, man, he was just driving the getaway car. He was only like 10% responsible. But Judge Johnson said, you are just as responsible. So there's your justice. This piece is called A Sight for Sore Eyes. A Sight for Sore Eyes. And it really was, and it really is, to see black African-American judges on the bench after you have gone through so much history. Still today is a sight for sore eyes. rising from the ashes of good old down-home hospitality, seasoned to mouth-watering perfection in South Carolina, Arkansas, Florida's Bible Belt of racism, bigotry. Feasting on lovingly cooked, lip-smacking meats and meals of faith and families, sucking the juice out of the systems brick by brick to deny basic human rights, resolute, staring discrimination squarely in the face, keenly aware of prejudices based on face, a sight for sore eyes, a sight for sore eyes, a sight for sore eyes to see. Black judges knowing this very real reality, challenging unjust laws and cultural norms, black lawyers becoming judges, weathering the torrential storms, doors slammed shut, now slightly ajar, open a crack. The judiciary seemingly unreachable, impossible odds stacked, smelling the sweet aroma of success for future legal minds to follow. Black judges taking lawyers under their wings, sweetening bitter pills that they were once forced to swallow. A sight for sore eyes to see. Where do I begin? Where do I start? Brown defendants looking shocked, relieved, a black judge in a black robe determined to give voices on the margins, their day to be heard, justice no longer blurred, sitting high, understanding institutions fortified to deny adequate defense. Vowing to administer rules fairly, justice, justice, justice beginning to make sense. A sight for sore eyes to see in the classroom. Little brown eyes open wide, smiling with happiness, joy, pride, sticking out their little chests. If they can do it, so can I. Little brown eyes open wide, smelling with happiness, joy, pride, sticking out their little chests. If they can do it, so can I. Innocent until proven guilty, more than just mere words, a black judge robed in dignity, courage, dignity, properly girded. Charles Z. Smith opening the door for Charles V. Johnson to bring in more. Leroy McCullough jumping on board. Judges Haley, Smith, Huggins, the blood of judicial service flowing through their veins, seize the opportunity to encourage others to break every chain. Monica Benton did not sit idly on the fence. Richard Jones understood the assignment. Spearman, Clark, Lori K. Smith, Wiggs, Phelps, Dixon, not to be left behind, knowing justice must be fair, colorblind, now open wide, now open wide, now open wide. Many marched through the door, honoring what ancestors fought for. A sight for sore eyes to see, leadership in the community, overcoming a history of spirit-breaking inequities, honoring those who bore the worst brutalities, dreams deferred, sold, black jurists, striving for excellence, unapologetically brilliant, oh, so very visible. If truth be told, an incredible, an amazing beauty to behold. Thank you.
Yeah, you see how we help one another? Jaye, thank you so much. That was really beautiful, and hearing those names. And tonight we're going to say some of those names. I, again, am very proud to be here on behalf of the Black Heritage Society Board, and some of our board members are here tonight. Raise your hands there. I see you too, right? Yep. Carol, Peoples Procter, and Stephanie Spearman. I told myself, too, that I wasn't going to veer from my script. I was just about to do that. And then I'm like, okay, Steph, look at your notes. Stay on topic. It's going to be a little hard for me tonight, too, because I'm feeling like I'm in this room that's full of this really beautiful energy. I've had the opportunity to reach out with a few emails and a few phone calls, but maybe a number of phone calls to Judge McCullough. Judge McCullough, you are my hero. Okay, Carol and I worked early in the planning of this event this evening, and when we finally approached you and had the opportunity to talk with you, you were that fuel. You lit our fire. We then were able to reach out and talk to a number of the jurists and family members to be able to bring this program together here tonight. So thank you. Thank you, Judge McCullough. Right. So here we go. And I'm in charge of the clicker too. So here we go. This, I absolutely love this. I want to tell you a little about the Charles, and we have a lot of Charles here tonight, the Charles Z. Smith Legacy Collection. But when I look at this photo, I see so much here, right, in this photo. So not only is this the judge, and when you look really deeply into the photos, you'll see him receiving his robe, right, as a new Superior Court judge. There's everything else in this photo, though, that tells me, one, the pride and the joy of his wife, Eleanor. You can see her sitting there in that first row, and then next to her is Carlos. And Carlos, you're here, I met you tonight. Yes, I know, looking like your dad. And so Carlos is there, and Felicia, Carlos was 10, and Felicia's 3 in this photograph. And this is a photo that was taken by a Seattle Times reporter who happened to be there that day in 1966. And then when you look over Ellie's shoulder, you know, and I zoom in just a little bit closer, I'm like, that's the bishop. That is Pastor John Adams, right? I don't know if you can see that from where you are, but there he is in the room. And that says to me, too, that he was there in support, as he always worked in community alongside and together with Justice Smith. They were 2 humanitarians. They were people who went outside and beyond the bench in community, as all of our judges, you'll hear from some of them tonight, and the same with them as well. So they were there working together, and so I want to be able to give, Ellie, I don't know if you have the actual image from the Seattle Times. The article that you see here down in the corner is from the Legacy Collection. You had this newspaper article in the Legacy Collection. I am really thankful and grateful to the Smith family for trusting the Black Heritage Society for being the stewards of this legacy collection that is just so beautiful, deep, and rich. Ellie reached out to us in 2019 and began the conversation with us about accepting the collection. We hold a number of legacy collections, and some of our archive go back to the 1890s. Washington, well, just before Washington became a state, but Black people and the history of Black people. So this legacy collection really meant a lot to us. We went out and sat down and talked with Ellie a couple of times, and we wanted to be able to accept everything, but we sort of put some limits and some control on what we could handle and manage in the collection. But when the collection arrived, oh my goodness, really beautiful and large. And Ellie, thank you so much for the way that you put together the detail on the categories. I can't tell you how much that means to a collections team when a collection arrives and it's already set in boxes and sorted and sticky notes and tells you what goes where and how come it's important. And that helped to guide, our process in determining how to accession this collection. So that was just before COVID, right, hit, and we were at least a good year out of the collection before we could really get back in and really dive into all of the boxes. And you can see in this photograph here over on my left, some of the boxes that arrived with all of their notes, and this really wonderful portrait of the judge sitting on top of these boxes. Today, I would say that maybe, and Stephanie Spearman, you can correct me, but we are so close, we're getting so close to actually touching that final piece within this collection. It's huge. It's over 800 pieces. I know she's given me the side eye just a little bit like, I don't know. Because we're touching every single piece that has come to us. So every document, every photograph, every speech, every single sheet of paper, to make sure that we're not missing everything and assigning it as it needs to be assigned, because we do know that there's interest in this collection, and we want to be able to provide it and make it accessible to anyone who wants to come and do their research. We're also really excited that we have it on a priority and on a list to digitize this collection. One of the things that we pride ourselves in is that we hold primary sources, right? So this is a majority primary sourced collection. And if we can manage to digitize the majority of it, if not everything, then we can share it out more broadly. We love it when people come to the archive and sit down, put on the white gloves, and go through all the photos and ask all the right questions to the collections team. But if we can manage to digitize this collection, I mean, imagine how far and wide we can share that. So we do work and have been working to fund some of that work, and with our partners at the National Museum, at the Smithsonian, but also more locally with funds that are coming to us from King County for Culture. And I see you, Cassie Chen, in the room. Really beautiful opportunity that they provide BHS to do the work that we do in collections. So aside from all of those items that I mentioned that are held within the collection, some of my favorites are the portraits, right? There are two portraits that were taken by Joseph Scalia, right? Renowned photographer, chief photographer at the Seattle Times. Beautiful, beautiful portraits. And then there's an oil painting, a rather large one, right? That was, I think it was Yadesi. Am I pronouncing his name correctly? He's a fabulous artist. And this water oil painting is just fabulous. So we're really anxious for people to see it, and we'll do more promotion of this collection. And right now, we have a small exhibit at Douglas Truth Library that coincides with this event. And so I hope you get a chance to get to the library, and on the lower floor, there's this beautiful case there. AKA sponsors that case at Douglas Truth Library, and we'll have some artifacts there from the collection, but also this beautiful shout out to Justice Smith. So again, thank you so much for trusting us, and I starting to get a little bit emotional, like I always do. So appreciating you so much, and later in this program, I want to give you a chance, and I see Lizelle Johnson, too. So much respect for you. See you here this evening to say a few words if you'd like. So I'll keep moving because I want to be able to introduce to you my sister from another mother, the fabulous friend, Carol Peoples Procter, who's a vice president at the Black Heritage Society, who will introduce some of our guest speakers tonight. Carol, I'm going to leave. I know, Carol. Yeah, I know. No, we don't. No, we don't.
Well, thank you, Stephanie. You all look so beautiful. It feels so powerful in here. I know nobody's greater than God, but God made everybody in here, so that's why it's feeling so wonderful. I'm Carol Peoples Procter, and I have the honor of serving the Black Heritage Society for a number of years, and I'm so proud of us because we are so serious about being history keepers. And we have this time capsule that's our crown jewel. And we know it, and we're proud of it. And so partners like MOHAI, who allow us a space of this level when we get to have programs like this so that we can learn more about ourselves. And it's history. So yeah, we're Black, but this is history that contributes to this country and world. So thank you for our partnership with MOHAI. Thank you for coming tonight. And we're just delving deeper and deeper because we contribute to this state. I get to introduce the panelists, and the first one is Judge Leroy McCullough. Retired, remember that? That's why we can never get a hold of him, because he's retired. And you better catch him when he's available, which isn't often, but we were lucky and that he's here tonight helping make this program to the level that it's going to be. So he was elected to the Superior Court in 1989 with the encouragement of the Honorable Charles V. Johnson, the first Black judge in Seattle. Judge McCullough is also the co-founder of the Charles V. Johnson Youth and Law Forum, which supports students from underrepresented communities in pursuing legal careers. And boy, do we need that more than ever. This group really needs to be celebrated and continued encouragement, because we're trying to lose our democracy with the current administration and its judges, and this body that's going to, that we can at least throw a law and try to enforce it. So, Judge Lori K. Smith, Washington State Court of Appeals. Judge Lori K. Smith is a judge for District 1 of Washington Court of Appeals, District 1, a former senior deputy prosecutor for King County. Judge Smith was awarded In 2011 and 2023, Judge Smith is the first African American woman to be appointed to the Washington State Appellate Court. And that's one thing that we're proud of at BHS, is that we, it doesn't even matter how old you are. When you do something for a first time, you could be 5 years old, we want to hear about it. We care. We really do care, and we want to educate. Justice Helen Whitener, Washington State Superior Court. Justice Helen Whitener has been a Washington State Supreme Court Justice since 2020. Justice Whitener served as a Pierce County Superior Court judge and a judge on the Washington State Board of Industrial Insurance Appeals. Justice Whitener is the first Black woman to serve on the Washington State Superior Court and the first Black Supreme Court Justice in the nation. And the youth, Kenny, I'm gonna say this right, Wodrago. Did I say it right? Yay! As you can hear, I'm a little challenged, so thank you that I said that right. Seattle University, the first-year student senator. Kenny is the first-year student at the Seattle University studying political science, specializing in legal studies. Kenny is currently serving as the first-year senator on the student government of Seattle University. Most notably, Kenny is a constituent services intern at the office of Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell for the past 3 summers. And he's here with us tonight. So we've got an exciting evening. Think about becoming a member. Those who write the story tell the story. If we don't deliver this information, it won't get delivered. So please consider joining us at BHS. And if you enjoy volunteering, if you're newly retired and need something to do, we'll keep you busy. You'll wonder how you had time to work. Thank you.
Getting our wires crossed just a teensy bit is that we really want to invite each one of the judges and the justice of Kenny. Please come in the order that Carol announced you. So, Judge Color, please come to the mic for a few words.
I have to get my clearance. I have to get my directions as I move slowly up there. Yes. All right. Good evening to everyone. So I have permission from these wonderful people who are associated with the Black Heritage Society to do a couple of things. So the first thing I'm going to do in honor of Black History Month and in honor of our ancestors is to inquire of Mother Smith and Mother Johnson whether or not we have your permission as community elders to proceed. Do we have your permission? All right, thank you so much. The second thing I want to do is thank all of you for your support from 1989 until 2035, when I was finally free, retired from King County Superior Court. But I would like for all of our judicial officers, those who were honored by the incredible poetry of Jaye Ware, if you would stand, regardless from Tacoma, Olympia, Snohomish County, would all of our judicial officers, active and retired, would you just stand and receive? Remain standing. I think they want to take pictures and maybe get some autographs from you later. Thank you very much. See, they made a mistake of giving me a microphone. They won't do that again. So let me thank you again, bless you all for being here this evening. I do want to share a few comments before these incredible co-panelists of mine join me here on this stage. Life for me, life for us, has been no crystal stair. It has had tacks in it. We've had to go up places where there was no light. Sometimes there was no carpet, but we didn't rest. We kept moving. You remember that poem by Langston Hughes, Mother to Son, and that is really the life of the judicial officers. On a lighter note, how many of you remember the Rolaids commercial? It says, "How do you spell relief?" You remember that? So how do you spell relief? They would say R-O-L-A-I-D-S and all of that. For many of the young people, the middle-aged people, the elders, people coming from the community, coming into our court system, you spell relief by these judges and these judicial officers that you have seen stand here tonight. I went through some of the materials, I read some of the quotes, and whether it's Pierce County, Thurston County, Kitsap County, where's my Kitsap County judge? Where are you? Yes, there's, of course, we have one in Kitsap County too. All right, Judge Kadeen Ferguson. The consistent message is that when several individuals who may be of color walk into a courtroom, they may be anxious. Maybe they didn't get a parking space. Maybe they didn't get treated properly as they proceeded through the process. But when they walk in, judicial officers, and see you and you and you and you, they breathe, they exhale. It's a relief because they have somebody, presumptively, who knows their story, who can understand where they were coming from, and when you win or lose, there's a certain credibility that comes with having a diverse, qualified, excellent bench as is represented here this evening. Amen. 250 years ago, July 4th, 1776, your history lesson, 13 rebellious colonies adopted unanimously an open letter of rebuke to a king. I didn't say anything about the No Kings protest, but it was a rebuke to a king, George III of England. The declaration began by saying that we don't need any proof. It's self-evident that all are created equal with inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. At the time that this was written, at the time that it was adopted, there were approximately 500,000 enslaved in these United States colonies. What were some of the abuses that they complained to that king about? Thomas Jefferson, the primary writer, said, "Let the facts be submitted to a candid world." So he complained about things like this. King George has kept arms among us in times of peace, standing armies without the consent of our legislators. Prescient, what do you think? What else did they complain about? He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries. I think they used to say in the church, there is nothing new under the sun. So here we are, some 250 years later, asking the question, what's the verdict? Here we are in this beautiful facility, thank you, MOHAI. Here we are working with these incredible people from the Black Heritage Society to raise the question. And we want to say that we are going to make sure that the verdict is going to be a positive one. For the 400 and some judges in Washington state, some 700 judicial officers across the nation, we all have different experiences, and I'm going to close with a couple of comments because these were drawn from experiences that some of us have had. Justice Smith, Judge Johnson, two of my many mentors, talked with me, counseled me. Many of us who were in the room, some of my black law enforcement officers who were partners with us in the Youth and Law Forum, Dr. Margaret Spearman, our coordinators here. But we wanted you to know that a day in the life of an African-American judge might look like this, and thank you again, Jaye. Driving up to your parking space, Mother Johnson, to see the N-word scrawled on your parking sign. Having a prosecutor report what time you get to work to your presiding judge, and then having that presiding judge counsel you about what time you get to work, even though you may leave after 12 hours of work. Wondering whether your membership in the NAACP or other social justice organization will be considered disqualifying. Supporting a request from a Latinx or other community that relocation or eviction notices be presented in both languages. Reminding an African-American witness who was hostile to police, brother, you can do this, now just stop it. Because we have the ability sometimes to talk to people in a way that others cannot. Holding a DSHS worker accountable for attempting to divide a family. This worker was asked, why was a black child going into foster care? The worker said there was no family that could hold this teenage child. To which Judge Patricia Clark, may she rest in peace, said, doesn't he have an uncle, or doesn't she have an uncle in Texas? Well, yes, Your Honor, but he's old. In our community, Judge Clark said, it doesn't matter. We take care of each other. What's your next problem? Well, Your Honor, he's got diabetes. Girl, are you serious? Everybody got diabetes. What's your next issue? And she continued to work through all of the excuses that were given to keep that child in the system rather than putting that child in a familial relationship. That's a day in the life of an African-American judge. Working with a mentally ill African-American defendant who had been approved to represent himself, came into my court and wanted to represent himself. That's not gonna happen. We talked, we counseled, and we took the time so that that individual then was able to get a lawyer. We're talking about fighting a culturally insensitive body that sometimes looks at black women in a certain way. So that one of our sister judges was told that she was rude, mean, aggressive, and bold, and that she should not be on the bench. Fortunately, because we have an incredible Supreme Court, that particular decision was overturned. So I asked the question again, how do we spell relief? You spell it with some incredible, positive, and supported African-American judges who are going to be featured in the Black Heritage Collection of the Black Heritage Society. I thank you. In the words of my children from Ghana, Madase, in the words of my family from East Africa, Asante Sana. Thank you so much.
It would be really bad if on my way up here I went splat. So I'm glad that didn't happen. I'm really happy to be here, really happy to be able to talk to you all. And I first am going to give you just a little of my history of getting to the bench. Each of us, all the judges, have their own history, but I think there's a commonality to Black judges getting to the bench: mentorship, seeing someone in that position, making you realize that you too could be there. So I'm just going to give you a brief history for me. And also, because 100 years of Black History Month is this year, it's just a wonderful time to be here and to be talking about these things. I never thought about law school. I was going to be a social worker. And when I was in high school, my dad was in the Air Force, he retired in Spokane. Someone from Wazoo's, Black Student Union came and spoke to my high school, and they said, don't stop at a 4-year degree. You should get more than that, because more than that will get you in the room, will let you make decisions, will push you further in the company or whatever it is you want to do. And so I knew I was going to college because my parents said I was, but I had never thought about the next step until then. And so then I thought, well, what kind of degree goes with social work? And when I was in college, I had a person who was helping me figure out what my next steps would be. And he said, a law degree, you can do anything with that law degree. And I said, well, I'm not going to be a lawyer. So you see, I can't really predict my future, because here I am. And so I said, okay, I'll do that. And I started thinking about the criminal justice system, and maybe I could do something to help reform that system. And that law degree would be really helpful to me. And then I went to law school, and I had Justice Charles Smith for criminal law. And I was like, oh my goodness. It never even occurred to me to be a lawyer, even though I was in law school whenever I was done, let alone to think about being a judge. And let me tell you, I didn't when he was my professor either. But I did think about being a lawyer, because I thought, my goodness, all this great work that he's done, and then he became a justice on the Supreme Court. Maybe this is something that maybe I should do. And I took some of the advocacy classes, and I did okay in them. And my grandfather once told me I liked to argue from the time I was 3, so maybe it was actually meant to be. And when I was finished with law school, I went to the prosecutor's office. And I thought I would retire there because, it was a nice job, I'd get a pension, it would be fine. But mentorship is a powerful thing. And when I was there was Judge Huggins Smith, there was Judge Charles Johnson, there was Judge Don Haley, Judge McCullough, who were all very supportive of me, and such wonderful examples of how to be dignified, how to be true to yourself, how to be a judicial officer and still be a Black human being in the world. And I just thought, this is sort of amazing. I'm not going to do it, but that's amazing. And then I did a lot of family law, and people said, you should think about being a family law commissioner. And I'm like, no, that's not happening. And they're like, no, really, you have these skills, it would be a good idea. And so finally I said, well, maybe. Bonnie Canada Thurston, a dear friend of mine, was a family law commissioner, first Black one, female. And I talked to her, and she said, it's a lot of work, but I think you would like it. So I put my name in, I got the job, and my first day, I walked into the courtroom, and it was filled with people, overwhelmingly filled with people. And that the fear response that you have, freezing, running, or fighting. Mine is usually fight, I don't know why. But then I was going to run away. It took everything in me to walk and sit down in the chair. And it was a good thing I did that, because the door behind me was locked by mistake. So I would have run away to a locked door. Doubly embarrassing. But that didn't happen. And I looked up and I saw these people sitting in the back that were people of color. And I saw them smiling at me. And I, as a prosecutor in the courtroom in family law, rarely saw litigants smiling. And then it occurred to me, they're smiling at me because I look like them, and they see me in this Black robe. And it was a huge awakening for me of how important it was to have judicial officers that look like you. I don't think they were expecting I was going to do them any favors. I don't think they were thinking they were going to have an easier road to hoe. I just think they thought that they would be heard and understood, and I hope that that was something that I did. So I thought I'd retire from that job. Again, since I didn't, I don't know my future. I had people who were being very supportive of me trying to be a judge, and I thought, you have to run for election when you're a judge, and as a commissioner, you get the job, and unless the judges fire you, you have it forever. So I'm not running. I'm not going to be a judge. But then people talked about the difference it would make to be a judge rather than a family law commissioner, and that I should just try it. And at one point, my husband said to me, I don't think God wants you to be homeless, so I think you should try this, and if it doesn't work out, you will get another job. Don't worry about that. And so I did, and I was appointed, and I got on the bench, and one of the first calendars I had was a sentencing calendar, a plea and sentencing calendar. And those are really tough things to do for any judicial officer. People are pleading guilty to all manner of crimes. And in our state, we have a sentencing guideline, and unless there are extreme circumstances, you really can't wander out of that guideline. And so here you are about to send people away for a significant amount of time, and you listen to the victim, and you listen to the defendant, and then you make a decision. And of course, many, many of those people were men of color, young men of color. And I thought, this isn't why I became a judge. This is a hard thing to do, and it's a hard thing to get through. And how do I make this experience not one of the most horrible experiences of their life because of me? It's already going to be pretty bad because of what we're doing, but what can I do to make it less horrible for them? And so I thought, well, what would I want in that situation? And when the victims came and gave their story, I was very sympathetic to them. And when the defendant said what they wanted to say and people spoke on their behalf, I listened to them. And then I tried to find a glimmer of some future hope for them. And a lot of times, especially when they were very young men, I would say to them, when you get out, you will still be a relatively young person. You still have a future. You still have the ability to make a difference in your life. If they had kids, I said, you still can be a father, and that your children will be waiting for you when you get out. I just tried to say something positive. More than once, they had said to me, that's the first time anyone has ever said that I would have a future, which astounded me on the one hand, but I could understand it on the other hand. And I thought, so maybe this is hard for me, but it's much more hard for them, and maybe this is part of why I'm here, so that I can make a difference in their life. And so I was going to retire from that, being a Superior Court judge. Again, don't know my future, so that didn't happen. And people came to me and said, you should think about the Court of Appeals. And I was like, that is hilarious. Like, the idea that I would be writing all the time, reading all the time, making these decisions, my name would be in those books that never go, no, that's not happening. And I said, why do you even think that would be something that I could do? Because you don't write a lot at Superior Court. You write orders, but you don't write a lot. I'm thinking, how do you even know I can write? They were like, no, you can learn that if you can't write. But we really think that you see things clearly, and this would be a good step for you. Along the way, I got on the Minority and Justice Commission, which is currently co-chaired by Justice Whitener. And on that commission, we do a lot of education of judges. When Justice Yu was the co-chair, she made sure that we always were looking at the mission of the Minority and Justice Commission when we were looking at education. And so we were talking about implicit bias. We were talking about the science of brain. We were talking about equity. All of those things that we were trying to teach judicial officers so that they would make better decisions. And I remember when people were saying, you should think about the Court of Appeals, that I would sometimes read decisions and I would think, I think they may have missed something here. There's something in here that's more than just what they're seeing. And then I'm like, oh my goodness, I think maybe that's why they think I should be on the Court of Appeals. And I decided to try. I got appointed. And I didn't even think at the time that I would be the first African-American woman ever appointed to an appellate court in the state of Washington. I think if I would have thought about that, I would have said, oh no, I'm not doing that. But it didn't even occur to me for some reason. I think Michael Spearman, whose place I took, was keeping that from me on purpose, because he didn't want me to think about that, and he didn't want me to run from that. And then when I got on, he said, you know, you're the first African-American. I'm like, oh my Lord. And with that comes, you know, I thought about all the people who had mentored me, all the people who had held me up, all the people that were the reason that I was there, and how important it was that I do a really good job, because I was the first and I didn't want to be the last. Luckily, not too long after, Helen was appointed to the Supreme Court, and so then there were two of us on the appellate court. And I will say that I have experienced on the appellate court being in a room with people who don't think like I think, but who would listen. We sit in panels of 3. There were times when I would say, you know, that's not what's really going on here. I think this is what's going on here, and maybe we need to look at it through that lens. And they actually listened, and I think our opinions got better and reflected that. And I had some of them, white men, tell me that they were very grateful that I was on the Court of Appeals, that they thought it made a difference. And I thought back to when I very first walked in the presiding court, and Charles Johnson was the presiding judge, and it was big courtroom, and you got sent out for your trials there. And I remember I needed to ask for a continuance, and every time you asked him for a continuance, he'd look over his glasses and say, but today is your trial date. As if, you know, like, excuse me, what are you trying to do? And I had a good reason, but I was like very nervous, and I did it. He was very kind. I got my continuance, and I thought, to think back to when I was a baby deputy in that courtroom, and now I'm on the Court of Appeals, being able to make a huge difference is just phenomenal. I think that the judicial branch of government is, you know, in a little bit of trouble right now. I think that we all need to be sure that we are recognizing that as a separate branch of government, we have the responsibility, we have our own agenda, and we have the right to make the decisions that we need to make. And frankly, the US Constitution and the Washington State Constitution give us all the things that we need to be able to make the right decisions. It's just a matter of recognizing that and moving forward. And in this 250 years of the United States, it's even more important that we keep that in mind as we're making these decisions. And mentorship is everything. And when I look at Kenny, I think, my God, the future's wonderful. So I'm very happy to be here, and thank you for listening.
Well, I made it up the stairs, and I'm standing, and that's really important, because in 2023, I had my back reconstructed, 10 levels, the 5th done on the West Coast, so I shouldn't be standing here right now. When I got the invitation, and I'll put it nicely, the invitation from Judge McCullough, it's never an invitation, it's a directive. But when I got the invitation to be here this evening, and when I understood the task, I immediately got on my phone and started texting every black judge that I knew, indicating you need to be in this room. On July 4th, 2026, our nation will commemorate and celebrate the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And this evening's engagement is America 250, the verdict is. Well, I've been thinking of what this all means, or should mean today, for me as a Black jurist in America. I've been thinking of the legacy of our first Black Supreme Court Justice, Thurgood Marshall, and what he said in many speeches he gave that I see as relevant today. I'm thinking of the legacy of Black jurists within Washington State, many of whom are present here this evening. The Washington Supreme Court began in 1889 at the start of the statehood, and 100 justices served on the bench as of this year. Until the 1980s, women and people of color lacked the opportunity to become Supreme Court justices in this state due to significant barriers, including lack of voting rights at state and federal levels, immigration and citizenship laws, and exclusion from membership in the State Bar Association. In the early 1900s, monumental gains were made for some women, and the era is known for landmark court decisions that had detrimental impacts on people of color and indigenous persons in the legal profession. In 1902, this state's Supreme Court denied bar admission to a gentleman, Takuji Yamashita, following his graduation from the University of Washington School of Law because he was not a US citizen. That decision was affirmed and upheld in 1922 by the United States Supreme Court. In 1910, the voters approved a constitutional amendment enshrining voting rights to some women, and a year later, this state was the first to authorize female jurors by statute. Like many other suffrage laws in the United States, the new law excluded many women of color. In 1965, Justice Charles E. Smith became this state's first African-American judge when he was appointed to the Seattle Municipal Court. And 1 year later, in 1966, he was appointed to the King County Superior Court bench. In 1967, the country saw a Black man ascend to the country's highest court, and that was Justice Thurgood Marshall. So Justice C.Z. Smith got here before Thurgood Marshall got there. In 1969, we had Judge Charles V. Johnson join the Seattle Municipal Court, where he presided over cases until his retirement in 1980. That same year, in 1969, Judge Joseph Jerome Farris became the first African-American judge to be appointed to the Washington State Court of Appeals, where he served for 10 years before being appointed to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. In 1983, the first Black female, Norma S. Huggins, was appointed to the Seattle Municipal Court and later served on the King County Superior Court. In 1988, Justice Smith was appointed to the state Supreme Court, where he served for a total of 14 years. In 2002, when he retired from the Supreme Court, he was then the longest serving justice on our state's Supreme Court. In 1989, Judge Leroy McCullough joined the King County Superior Court and continued the exemplary service his predecessors left on the Washington judiciary. In 2017, Judge Nicole Gaines Phelps became the first African-American woman to win a contested election for a King County Superior Court seat. 2018, Judge Lori K. Smith was appointed to the Court of Appeals, becoming the first black female to do so after being a King County Superior Court judge for 6 years and a court commissioner for many years before that. In 2020, like Judge Nicole Gaines Phelps, we have a black female judge out of Thurston County, Judge Sharonda D. Amamillo, who became the first elected black judge on the Thurston County Superior Court. Are you sensing a pattern? When you see it, you become it. You know you can do it. That same year, I was appointed and subsequently elected twice to the Washington State Supreme Court, following in the footsteps of these impressive and accomplished black jurists. At that time, COVID was running rampant. And like you, I never thought I would see a black female U.S. Supreme Court Justice, Ketanji Brown Jackson, reach the high court. Now, Justice Thurgood Marshall, who believed in the benefits of a good education, because you know he always fought for us to be educated, said it is our unceasing responsibility to use our knowledge and training for improving the lives of others. What matters is to remember always the obligation we bear to the society that has placed us in a position where we can afford an education. In pursuit of equality, Justice Marshall stressed the facts that blacks joined America's military to fight its wars and invested untold hours working in its factories and on its farms, contributing to the development of this country's magnificent wealth and waiting to share in its prosperity. What is striking, he said, is the role legal principles have played throughout America's history in determining the condition of Negroes. They were enslaved by law, emancipated by law, disenfranchised and segregated by law, and finally, they have begun to win equality by law. He saw our progress as dramatic and continuing to change to meet the challenges of a changing society. The founders and the framers of this great nation could not have envisioned these changes. They could not have imagined, nor would they have accepted that document, two of them, that they were drafting would one day be construed by a Supreme Court to which had appointed descendants of African slaves. The credit, he said, does not belong to the founders or the framers. It belongs to those who refuse to acquiesce in outdated notions of liberty, justice, and equality, and who strived to better them. America 250, the verdict is, well, we have done well. Look around this room of black jurists in Washington State and commend yourselves for doing well. However, the work is not done and will not be done until we are all truly equal. In this room, there are many firsts, and I'd like to introduce some of them. We have Andrea Jaman. Stand. Andrea is the first Muslim woman to be seated, black Muslim woman to be seated on a bench in Washington State. What's amazing about Andrea's story is she had no intentions of seeking that position, but the judge in the seat that she now sits in was comfortable enough to be using the N-word in meetings, and that became news. And Andrea reached out to me and said, I'm going for it. I am going to make a difference. And she has. We have two jurists, Kadeen Ferguson Brown, stand, and Judge Okoloko stand. These are two immigrant-born judges like myself, my Caribbean sister and my African brother, who came to America and decided to make a difference by seeking a seat on the bench. They have made a difference. Judge Ferguson Brown is the first Black female to be seated in Kitsap County. Judge Okoloko followed Judge Lucas up in Snohomish County, and he is making a difference there as well. There are many others. My colleague in law school, Judge Dwayne Christopher, my study partner for the bar exam. It's nice to see him on the bench in Pierce County. Yes. Judge Davis, who I swore in, stand. On the Pierce County Superior Court bench. When I joined the bench in Pierce County in 2015, the only seated Black male, and the only Black male that ever sat on that bench, Judge Cuthbertson, he's retired now. I joined him after we lost one of our seats. Judge Beverly Grant was the first Black female on that bench. So I was the second, and Judge Cuthbertson was the only one there at the time. We made a pact that by the time either one of us leaves, and I thought I would be staying and he would be retiring, we'd never envision me ascending to the High Court. We made a pact by the time either one of us left that position that we would make sure there were others following. And when I left, there were 6 on all levels. You heard a lot about King County. This is our largest electorate and our largest county. I think there are like 55 judges. And it's such a beautiful thing when I come to Seattle to see so many judges of color and Black judges. Let's not forget what has happened and what we've seen happen on the federal bench. The state court judges make a difference in our daily lives. They have to be representative of the people that we're serving. Too many of our people, Black individuals, are coming before us in the court. And it's not because they want to, it's because they're being brought in. Parallels, slavery, disenfranchisement, shackling. Okay, you call it. They're chained up, it's shackling. And we had a case when I first joined the court, State v. Jackson, where we addressed that. It's dehumanizing. What's the difference a person of color, a Black individual, can make on our bench? A huge difference. So as we think about celebrating 250 years past, I don't know about you, but I'm planning for 250 more years forward. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. So, happy Black History Month. I'm grateful to have the honor of being on this panel with such distinguished judges who made history in our state and, put themselves in the history books, and many people here being the first, but working to make sure that they're not the last. And so in paving that way to strive for Black excellence, for Black and brown youth to strive for that, I'll kind of tell a brief story before I get into my remarks. But I'm a proud graduate of the class of 2018 at Thurgood Marshall Elementary School. And so I say that because my childhood was filled with hope for our country's next 250 years. And in 5th grade, on Thurgood Marshall Day, which is in February, the very first judge that I met was Judge Anita Crawford Willis, presiding judge of the Seattle Municipal Court. And so for me, the very first judge I've ever met, being a Black woman, that told me that if you put your mind to it, you can achieve it. And seeing not only a Black person but a woman in power also told me that you can break those historical barriers. And so I also had the privilege of growing up as a child and seeing President Barack Obama and our First Lady Michelle Obama as the first Black people in their roles, and they gave many children like me hope for what the promise of America can be for all of us. And so as many look at the 250 years of our nation being signified by the signing of the Declaration of Independence, which declares the self-evident truths that we are all created equal, that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are our inalienable rights as human beings, and truer words have never been spoken. But however, I'd like to turn our attention to an equally important document, not yet in its 250th anniversary, but one that was created 238 years ago, the Constitution of the United States. As a guiding philosophical and moral document, the ideals inscribed in the Declaration of Independence cannot become a reality unless we have a legal system to carry them out, the document of we the people. Crafted by 55 delegates in a hot room in Independence Hall in Philadelphia during the summer, the Constitution created the structure for our government to this day and created the laws that would defend the liberties and freedoms of people, but however, it was not meant for all the people. With half of those delegates at the convention being slave owners, the freedom thought to have been guaranteed for mankind was selective. As soon as you get to Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution, and before I keep getting into my remarks, I should say that as an aspiring law student, I read the Constitution every few months to, learn, and I always learn something new every time I read it. But a couple times ago I read it, I started paying more attention to the covert meanings behind slavery. With Article 1, Section 2 saying that in discussing how the census is to work, which determines how many representatives each state is entitled to, it starts by, part of it says, counts each white person as one whole person and 3/5 of all other persons, the enslaved Black people. This is an ugly compromise where the slave owners had it both ways, where they could get the enslaved Black people that they owned to count and add more to their population and gave them more representatives in the House and gave them more electoral college votes. But they also got both sides of the coin, where the other side was they were still able to dehumanize those that looked like me and not count us as full and equal people under the law. And in addition to banning Congress from suspending the right of habeas corpus or granting titles of nobility, Article 1, Section 9 barred the Congress from making any law that would ban the slave trade before the year 1808. But it allowed the Congress to levy taxes on imported slaves just as long as it didn't exceed $10 per person. And the next thing I'd like to point you to is Article 4, which talks about the rights that states have and how they're to exist among each other. Section 2 of that article talks about the extradition of criminals who flee from one state to another, and separately talks about what to do with escaped slaves in detail. As said in the Constitution, they were to be delivered upon the claim of the party to whom such service or labor may be due. And with the Fugitive Slaves Acts of 1793 and 1850, white slave catchers could snatch anyone they wanted, escaped or free, with no due process, and send them to conditions of subhuman status, which sounds very familiar nearly 250 years later. And similar to the 13th Amendment, which although it did end slavery and the legality of trading humans like cattle, separating them from their families, or beating them for having the audacity to dream of freedom, it still to this day allows for involuntary servitude when it's a punishment for a crime. And ever since its ratification in 1865, it created the mass incarceration system as we know it today. And one thing to note in the Constitution is that it never once uses the word slavery until the 13th Amendment came along, but the document before that amendment sought to preserve, protect, and defend such an ugly institution. And although our Constitution has many intentional flaws, and it was selective about who would attain those rights enumerated in our Declaration, there are many parts of it that give me hope for what our country can be. The 14th Amendment established birthright citizenship, equal protection under the laws regardless of people's status, and said that states, in addition to the federal government, cannot deprive people of their due process, which is something that was only observed at the federal level before the passage and enactment of that amendment. And something to note that's very similar to the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which shows that the advancement in rights and equality for Black people have been the advancement of rights and equality for all people. And we still have those today who will claim that Black history is not American history. Or when you look at the 15th Amendment that says the right to vote shall not be denied on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude, or when you get to the 19th Amendment that says the right to vote cannot be denied on the account of gender, or the 24th Amendment, which abolished the poll tax and abolished a pay-to-vote system that would be a barrier for many people, especially today, with the massive wealth inequalities that exist in our country and our world. Or when you look at the 26th Amendment, which lowered the voting age from 21 to 18, so many students like me, in addition to dealing with the pressures of adulthood that are incumbent upon us, we also have the right to vote and have a say in how our society is run. Or when you look at the 17th Amendment, which allowed for people to directly elect their senators, a controversial idea before that, but was an idea that many fought for before. And we're just looking at the Bill of Rights that protects our freedom of speech, freedom from search and seizure, and ensuring the protection of our due process rights, the right to an attorney, the right to a jury trial, and the right against cruel and unusual punishment. And all of these are rights that are deeply enshrined in our legal system to the degree where we think that they're basic. However, they're not. These are extraordinary rights that many people fought and died for, and we cannot take for granted. Many of them, like our ancestors, fought and died knowing that they wouldn't be able to enjoy those rights, but hoped and prayed that their children and their grandchildren would be able to enjoy them. Rights that were fought hard for at the battlefields of Yorktown and Gettysburg, in Independence Hall, where they drafted the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, the streets of Selma or the March on Washington, or the courtrooms and many other places in the land where people stand up and say, we deserve better. And because the Constitution is a document that allows us to codify the Declaration of Independence into law, it has allowed us to expand many rights for Americans and expand the way that they're implemented. But lastly, I'd like to recite my most favorite part of the Constitution, which is the preamble, and it gives me hope for the next 250 years of our country, where in the future a 19-year-old college student can give a similar speech and for once declare that every person lives in America and around the world equal, dignified, and free, and that it will be true because it's reflected in the actions of our society as it is declared in our laws. That we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Thank you.
Oh, Kenny. Oh my gosh, that's pretty hilarious. Wow, what a privilege to be in this room tonight is what I was thinking as I was sitting here and listening to our speakers this evening. And what I know is that outside of this room, this is all being recorded. And so it will be shared out more broadly than just those of us who are here tonight. So I'm really proud to be part of this program here tonight. And I think I'm looking for my clicker. Oh, I was getting nervous. I was like, where's my clicker? So I'm going to go back just one slide because Justice Whitener, you mentioned the Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, and I too had her on my mind about tonight. And so I love this quote between these two slides of Lady Justice, our Lady Liberty, where we all rise, and then also setting the mark and setting the bar. I feel like this room is just graced this evening with a number of esteemed jurists, and I love that you asked them all to stand, and the applause that you've all received. I hope that before this evening is over that I get a chance to talk to each one of you. Please don't leave the building without without talking to me, because I'm going to be looking for you. And we just honor you and your paths and the history that you shared here tonight, and knowing that it wasn't easy at all, but determined, right? I heard that. And I hope all of you heard that in the messages that we had this evening. And I hope that to get a chance to, again, expand our collections. I was going to save this piece for a little bit later, but I think I'll go ahead and make this announcement now before we move into some additional comments. Just because I'm so moved at this particular time to say this is that after a number of conversations with Judge McCullough, thank you so much again, Judge, that Carol and I had a discussion yesterday, and and then shared out to the board. I hope they all opened their emails this morning to see that we've made a decision. And what we'd like to do is to create a BHS, Black Heritage Society of Washington State Archive Fellowship. And yes, we've been very fortunate and with support in community, and we want to be able to give back. We're taking a few pointers too from our partners at MOHAI who have a curators fellowship, but we want to expand some of what we do into the archive, where beginning this fall, we will invite a college or university student to come and sit with us for 4 months with a $5,000 stipend to look into our collection and our archive. Now, I think in the future, we'll allow those students to decide on what topic kind of floats their boat or what interests them, but where we're going to guide them this first time, this inaugural season, is with the Black judiciary, the jurists, and the profession, the law profession. So we're going to encourage them to look at our collection, see what they see. It's a fairly decent collection, but not as deep as we would hope it to be. So we hope that all of you in this room will participate and be part of some of that research. And so in the end, what our student will do is to provide a public program. At the end of this research, this 4 months, and working in the archive, doing the research, will provide a public program. And so we still have to work out some of the details, but we're pretty solid in where we want to go with this. So I'm really excited that we can say that and share that with you, particularly Judge McCullough, because I know that is something that you've expressed and have been really strong about with Carol and I. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So let's get moving. Oh, the beauty, right, in these two. Justice Smith, flanked by Judge Stokes and Judge Johnson, the Charleses, and all that energy, all that power. And how they're connected in a number of ways to all who spoke here tonight and others, who stood. And we applaud you, too, in that their influence was something that was instrumental. And though they are not here with us physically, they still move us, right? And they still are there to impress and inspire all of us, and Kenny, too. Kenny, tonight, I just sat there and I was just like nodding through the whole thing, right? I am so, inspired by your words when you call out the Constitution, something that's been on my mind for the last 8 years, at least. And challenging that, and all of us deciding too, the verdict is, what is that? What does that mean? We the people, we the governed. So tonight we heard, from our speakers some of that, and pushing our, our thought and opinion around that. We hold a really beautiful, again, these collections at the Black Heritage Society. When we talk about judgment, we hold no judgment within our collections too. We preserve them and hold them in trust. And so no judgment is there. And so I'm feeling like all of this is coming together this evening, and this appreciation too that we have for Judge Stokes' family members aren't here tonight, I don't believe. I know that we talked with Mrs. Stokes and her daughter Stephanie, and we'll be sure that they see a copy of this program and presentation this evening. But we're really fortunate here up front, close and personal, to have Mrs. Lozelle Johnson, Judge Johnson's wife and backbone, right? We know how that works. We know how that works and how you hold it down. And then your own career, your own promise, and your own path. And then Eleanor Smith, I can't say enough about you and your support for the Black Heritage Society, how you support your family, and also the judge through his career. You were instrumental for us a few years ago when we were starting to look at ourselves and evaluate where we were going and where we were headed, and we'd always had our heads down in the archive around a certain way to do a certain thing. And when we realized that we needed to move to a new collections management system, you were the person who stepped up. You were the person who said, I can help you. And we just appreciate you so much. We have come quite a ways since those days when you, a couple years ago, when you made that promise to us. And so we're able to advance our systems, advance our support, and would love if either of you wonderful women have anything to say this evening. We will bring a mic to you if you would care to say just a few words to this audience. We would love it. Or Stephen, okay, that would be great, Stephen, thank you.
Unaccustomed to public speaking as I am. Certainly. My name's Stephen Smith, and it's an honor to be here on behalf of our family to express our deepest gratitude for this historic recognition. This exhibit includes, obviously, curated images and artifacts of my late father, the Honorable Charles E. Smith, and it serves as a powerful testament to Black lives dedicated to the law and social progress. This evidence is clear. I'm especially proud to be here this evening with my mother, Eleanor Martinez Smith, who's seated next to me here. She recently celebrated her 95th year here, and we're very proud of that. I believe my oldest brother and his wife is in the back here, Carlos, who's been identified. And while some of my siblings could not be here in person, they're joined with us in spirit as we recognize and appreciate our father's enduring legacy among other significant leaders. Looking out at this room, I see more than just honored guests. I see extraordinary individuals who've been lifelong friends and extensions of our own family. Each of you carries a distinguished record of service to the ideals of equality, justice, and truth. My father reminded us that the law is a living thing that we are all a part of. Experiencing this exhibit and seeing the faces of those who continue this work in our communities here tonight reassures me that his contributions and dedication to increasing the meaningful diversity of the legal profession and judiciary to reflect who we are as a community remain very much alive today. I believe we have all, at one time or another, been inspired by my father's example, whether through his public jurisprudence or his private mentorship. We'd like to thank the Black Historical Society with its dedicated volunteers and supporters for giving us this remarkable gift, a space to remember, and a mandate to reflect. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen.
Good evening. My remarks are very brief. Please know that they're from my heart. It's good seeing so many faces, especially the young ones who are and will fill the void in the judiciary. And I want those of you who I know personally to know that it does my heart good just thinking about your contributions to the legal profession. I call my husband by his middle name, so we'll eliminate some of these Charleses. When Vernon and I first came to Seattle from Arkansas in the 50s, there were no black judges, and you could count the number of black attorneys on one hand. Vernon and I had the pleasure of visiting with many of you young judges, visiting with many of you formally and informally over the years. And we both appreciated that you thought so much about us and our well-being. It has been mentioned that no way would we have guessed that we would be so well represented in this 25th anniversary of America. Keep in mind that you, young judges, are the role models now for future generations from time to time. Vernon would see something in students that they didn't see in themselves. He would take the time to call them out and to encourage them to seriously consider the legal profession. Over the years, a number of law students and attorneys would ask my husband for study advice as well as life advice because they knew he was willing to listen. And now it is your turn to mentor students because you'll never know when spending a little time with someone can create a spark. A case in point, the reason Vernon decided to go into law was a high school career day in which a lawyer was a guest speaker. A spark was lit and a path was set. The rest is history. As the saying goes, helping others is the rent we pay for the space we take up here on earth. Just know that I am cheering you on and wishing you all the best. And I'm certain that Vernon is also. I'm very, very proud of all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. And, all of that wisdom, all that you've shared, I'm taking it in, and I know that everyone else in the room too. And this too reminds me that at BHS we are very proud of our oral history projects and programs, and those who were behind that early on, Esther Hall Mumford, co-founder of the Black Heritage Society, along with Jacqueline Lawson, take pride in our oral histories. And so I'm reminded here tonight too that we need to step it up just a pace and reach out to our judges and others and record those histories, because all we hold is in perpetuity at the Black Heritage Society. And when I say in perpetuity, tomorrow and beyond. So I'm just really excited and inspired to get together with our board, inviting a couple of new board members to join us. And I'm going to say this out loud because we're really working toward bringing Ryan Donaldson and Jackie Peterson, who are here in the audience tonight, to our board for some new and exciting energy and how we strategize around maintaining our collections. And this will definitely be a highlight of our collection and our strategy. So thank you, everyone, for coming out this evening. We do have maybe a few minutes, a couple of questions. I know we've really pushed our limit here tonight, but all well worth it. Thank you, MOHAI, for hosting us. But yes. But if there are any questions, we can take a couple of questions or comments to any of our speakers or in general. No? I saw everybody kind of approaching them early on before we got started on this program, so maybe you got it all out. I don't know. Okay, yes. Oh. Georgia McDade, yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so very much for this program. My one regret is that it was not at McCaw Hall and the place wasn't packed. I learned so much tonight, and I'm so glad we have all of this history. But my question is, what do we do today? So much is happening, has happened, have a good feeling will happen before the next presidential election. So what do you say today with this 250th anniversary?
Any comment?
I can.
Yes.
Can you all hear me? Okay, perfect. I think after November 2024, we all thought that it was all gonna go downhill immediately at noon on January 20th, but we're all still here. And the day after the election, I texted a family friend, a black woman, and I asked her, how do you feel? And she said, we've been through worse. And having interned for the mayor of Seattle and seeing how things work at a local level, seeing all the judiciary and having been around that with the Youth and Law Forum, with the legal system itself, it's been able to keep things from falling apart. Although there's a lot of flaws in our system that got us where we are today, just as many protections have kept us where we are and prevented things from breaking apart. And in addition to that, the courtrooms, the one place where facts are what guide the decisions and not political rhetoric. And so I think that what we've been doing with local nonprofits and seeing everybody being who they are, helping where they can, whether it's a local food drive or whether you're making a poster to raise attention to something, I think that our decentralized, our federalist system with state level and federal level, but also just us as people, the Constitution, we the people, we're the governors as well as the governed. And so I think that that's what we do. We just continue doing what we do, and we keep exploring our options. And there's already been so many creative avenues that people have taken to fight against what's been happening from the federal level. So yeah, that's
Thank you, Kenny.
May I chime in on that just a bit?
Yes, please.
Thank you so much, Kenneth. That made my point as well. One of the things that I did before I switched over to the study of law was I was in the School of Education. So I didn't want to end tonight's program without celebrating all of you who are in the field of education, who have taught us. Every one of us would not be here if we didn't have some of you who encouraged us along the way. And I know that two of our famous educators are on the front row, and there are many of you that are in the room. There is a philosopher that says that one who opens a classroom closes a prison. And that's Victor Hugo. This is why many of us in this room, with the encouragement of so many of my elders, engage in this Youth and Law Forum program, because we know that there is a direct connection between what happens to a young person in the classroom and what happens to the person when they get to juvenile detention, and then what happens to that person when they get out of juvenile detention. There is a pathway from the classroom to the prison. And those of you who are in the field of education, those of you who are working with young people, I see Justice Bridges here, thank you, because you have the opportunity to change the direction, the trajectory of so many people. I commend the Minority and Justice Commission because they have joined us in going all over the state to talk to young people about choices and about education so that the number of young people whose lives will be impacted by the criminal justice system will be markedly reduced. So again, if you are an educator or if you're not, take the time to talk to a young person. Take the time to affirm that young person. Remember, all the perfect people are already dead, so give them some room to grow and make mistakes.
Yes, thank you. Okay, thank you so much. So I think that's it. We're going to...
If I can, I'd like to answer
please.
the question you asked. As judicial officers, we have to be careful that we don't venture into politics. So as a judicial officer, I would say pay attention to who is seated on your benches. Mm-hmm. We are elected officials. Many of us got here by appointment and then had to run subsequently in an election. So it's elections, and you get to vote in regards to who is seated on the bench, making the decisions that impact your lives. In order to make a change and to build trust and confidence in this institution that we partake in, the people need to see themselves reflected. So therefore, pay attention to who you're voting for and make sure that you're being heard, at least by way of representation. And as you heard, it doesn't mean to say you're going to get what you want. But one of the things I did realize when I joined the judiciary in Pierce County, and I came out on the bench with my hair in braids, one lawyer who was passing my courtroom literally backtracked, looked in, and it was a black female, and later on told me, "It felt so good to see you there." So pay attention and vote.
The clicker.
So I just want to say, as I said before, and as Kenny showed us, we have the Constitution of the United States, we have the Washington Constitution, we have all of these laws so that we can do the right thing. The agenda of the judiciary should be to do the right thing, and you all should be holding us accountable to doing the right thing.
Yes, I agree on all of that, and anyone who knows me too is that I'm really fond of chalk and sidewalk chalk art and writing messages on my sidewalk, and most recently, as it rains, and then I repeat and repeat, "We the people." Large color letters out in front of my house, and having people stop and look and think. I can see them. I watch out of my window as people stop and look and think. So agreeing with everything that you said here tonight. And again, thank you so much for coming out, participating, asking all the right questions, and much appreciation for all of you. Thank you.